Hey, Jeannie here. ChatGPT is an essential tool for educating oneself about critical issues such as economics and governance. By engaging with ChatGPT, go to chat.com. Users can explore complex topics like wage disparities, economic trends, and government policies in an accessible, conversational format. For instance, questions about the significant pay gap between average CEO salaries and hourly wages over decades reveal the profound shifts in economic structures and inequality. Pay attention to the economic structures, people. How would you know this? Learn it at school? At college? Well, OpenAI ChatGPT has dropped the solution in your lap, or on your phone, your choice. Have a listen and leave a comment.
You know, it's funny how we can just ask these big picture questions now, right? Like, okay, Eric, what was the average wage earner's salary compared to CEO compensation in, say, 1980?
Oh, that's a great question. And generative AI tools like ChatGPT make it so much easier to dive into those kinds of comparisons. I mean, in the 1980s, the CEO to worker pay ratio was approximately 30 to 1. So, for every dollar an average worker earned, the CEO earned about $30. Compare that to today, and it's pretty staggering.
Wait, 30 to 1? That doesn't sound too bad, at least not compared to now. What's it up to these days? Like 200 to 1?
Actually, yeah, it's over 350 to 1 these days for many major corporations. And this is where ChatGPT comes in handy because instead of spending hours sifting through reports, you can ask it to pull historical data. And boom, it's all there in seconds.
It's wild. Like, if you think about it, tech like this is changing how we think about, well, everything. Back when I was researching culinary history, I came across these old accounts of how food prices used to track economic shifts. It's fascinating. For instance, in medieval Spain, basic staples like bread became ridiculously expensive anytime the ruling class took a bigger slice of economic pie.
Right, because food pricing often reflects broader income disparities. And it's the same story today, except now we have the tools to see those disparities play out in real time. But your example highlights an important point. Income inequality isn't a new concept. What's new is how stark the gap has become and how fast we can analyze it now.
Exactly. And I think tools like ChatGPT really shine here. Imagine someone like scrolling through social media, seeing this data pop up, boom, they can verify it immediately. No more, oh, I'll check that later, probably.
You know, it's incredible how tools like ChatGPT let us put these income disparity trends into perspective. Take the 1980s, for example. Worker wages were growing steadily, but they couldn't keep up with the soaring rates of CEO compensation. By the 1990s, stock options started playing a huge role in executive pay, something most people didn't even understand back then.
Ah, stock options. That's the paper money thing, right?
Exactly. They're basically shares of the company that executives can cash in later, usually when the stock price has gone up. And this practice incentivized CEOs to prioritize strategies that boosted share prices, sometimes at the expense of worker wages or long-term stability.
Oh, right, like layoffs or cutting benefits.
Exactly. And it's created a dynamic where CEOs have seen skyrocketing compensation. Meanwhile, regular workers have seen their wages stagnate when you adjust for inflation. A case in point, Jeff Bezos at Amazon. His net worth soared into the hundreds of billions, partly driven by stock performance, while many of Amazon's frontline workers have reported struggling to make a living wage.
Ugh, that's like brutally unfair. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to fully grasp, you know? Like, sure, billion-dollar net worth, and I guess that stock options part, but how does that disconnect even happen? It feels like surreal math.
It's surreal, but it's not accidental. Add in bonuses, perks like private jets or housing allowances, and you start to see a very different financial picture for executives compared to their teams. And the thing is, most people don't know how these compensation packages are structured. That lack of understanding makes it harder to, well, question or challenge them.
Okay, but it's 2025 now. There's no way we're still just sitting around and letting this happen, right? Like, this is where AI tools should be coming in to at least help us figure this stuff out. Okay, so this is exactly where tools like ChatGPT make a difference. They're helping regular people like us really unpack things like executive pay structures that used to feel completely out of reach to understand. And beyond that, think about how fact-checking works now. If someone throws out some wild claim like, oh, billionaires have gourmet chefs serving them gold-infused ice cream every day, we can actually dig into the truth of it instead of just shrugging.
Right. It becomes one of those viral facts that sits in the back of your mind, unverified, but very much there. And misinformation like that can really skew how we see the world, especially when it comes to discussions about wealth and inequality.
Exactly. So, get this. I saw that gold-infused food claim in some random thread, and it took like 5 minutes on ChatGPT to figure out it was total nonsense. Turns out, while edible gold does exist, gourmet chefs use it as a wow factor decoration. It's not like a staple of billionaire breakfasts or anything.
And I think your story really drives home a huge point. Fact-checking doesn't have to be an hours-long process anymore. With tools like ChatGPT, it's possible to quickly sift through claims and decide what's real and what's not.
Totally. But, then there's the flip side. Just because you have the tool doesn't mean you can slack, right? Like, you still gotta cross-check sources and think critically. I mean, ChatGPT isn't infallible. It's only as good as the data it pulls from.
Exactly. That's an important reminder. Generative AI is a tool, not an oracle. It can help level the playing field, sure, but the responsibility lies with all of us to use it wisely. Disclaimers exist for a reason. We have to verify and think before sharing because, honestly, the stakes are high when it comes to misinformation.
Yeah, and what's cool is that when we all get intentional about this, checking facts, asking questions, it pushes us toward being a more informed and, I guess, responsible society. Like we're contributing to the bigger picture in a real way,
Absolutely. It's empowering to think that these tools can give every individual, no matter their background, the ability to challenge misinformation and shape a more accurate understanding of things like wealth and inequality. But it's also a reminder that we're all part of the solution.
On that note, I think we've cracked the code on at least one thing: the power of staying curious and calling out the gold-plated ice cream when we see it. That's a win, right?
That's definitely a win. And on that note, thanks for tuning in and keeping the conversation going. Until next time.